How you doing? Boy, it's nice to be down here. And had a long day on planes yesterday. For 12 hours it took me to get here from Los Angeles. Well, first of all, I'd clear up a little confusion, I think, what people are thinking about whether there is a yes still around at the moment. And there, in fact, definitely is a yes. We're midway through recording our next album in Los Angeles. And the band consists of Tony Kaye, myself, Chris Squire, and there's two new members in the band, and Trevor Raven's still in the band, by the way. There's two new members in the band. There will be possibly two guitarists in Yes for the first time ever in his career. And we will have an album out by summer. I can't tell you who it is yet, you must understand that, but we will have the album out by summertime. And looking forward to touring later in the year. And I must say it's one of the strongest lineups of Yes that there has ever been as far as I'm concerned, and it's just a joy to play with it, including the music which we're writing. The writing at the moment is excellent. Very much in a Yes vein, but using some of the older style techniques of Yes music. And it's going to be really worth listening to. Because we haven't spent a lot of time putting the music down. It takes us a long time to make records. And we have a reputation for doing that, but this time we hope to get it done by July. We've done a lot of groundwork on it. So look forward to that. When you think about asking me some questions later, because I will, in fact, answer questions, not on everything, like you said, my private life I keep to myself, but ask me mostly, you know, a lot of things about Yes, I'll answer questions and technical questions, whatever you like, how we approach studio work and lots of different aspects of the band. Another thing that I'd like you to ask me about is one of the things I concentrate on in these clinics is how to play with other musicians, which I think a lot of kids miss out on, how to listen to other musicians, how to play with them, and generally how much of a live feel we like to get on record, and that's what Yes does most of the time. So I'll play for a while and get myself warmed up here and talk to you afterwards. Thank you. Thanks very much. I needed that all day. The frustrations of yesterday of being on planes for so long. Whew. I enjoyed that. That's so good. This is the hard part where you have to go and talk. The first thing I usually pick up the subject is, as I was saying before, the actual purpose of being a drummer. You should never forget, yeah, great, thanks, the role the drummer should play in a band, which first and foremost is keeping perfect time, well not perfect time as much as just keeping time for the band and the musicians involved. It is the role which everybody should be playing, and all of the flash technical stuff can be over and above that kind of thing. And it's very important when I see a lot of young kids in here, that's great, because them guys getting initially the study of playing with metronome and getting good time signatures is the most important thing about drumming that they could possibly be learning at such an early age. I have a 6-year-old who does piano lessons. He has piano lessons and keyboard lessons, and I stress this all the time. And after a year of lessons, he's really starting to pick up good meter and being able to play a role as such keeping good time to himself. And as I say, this is the first thing I usually pick up on for people to always remember when you're playing with a band. Another thing I always stress is the importance of playing with other musicians in the band and listening to what everybody is playing around you and not getting lost in your own world, and playing the drums with the music that's going on, as well as kind of doing your own thing, as it were. And it's very important, the relationship I have with Chris Squire, the bass player, and yes, I've been playing with him for 18 years. And we have got to such a degree now where we'll pretty much know how we're approaching each individual piece of music. And I can understand how he's going to play a certain piece. Because within the complexity of a lot of Yes music on stage, a lot of people think that every note is worked out within the Yes framework. In actual fact, in amongst that complexity of music, there is a lot of spontaneity that comes from different instruments. And a lot of the different things that I'm able to do within the framework of Yes is be able to play with the individual instruments as well as play the role in the band, which makes it a perfect band for a man such as myself, the kind of style I play with. A lot of people judge me as being a very melodic type drummer. That's because from the age of 6, I think, I played piano and had a lot of melodic sense in my early years. And when I was 12 years old, my uncle was a drummer, and he said, I was kind of pounding the keyboards very, very hard and very percussively, and playing them very rhythmically, breaking them sometimes. So he said, we better get this guy something to pound on, get his frustrations out, which led to me getting a set of drums at the age of 12. And that led to me, Ludwig were the first drums I ever had, and I've been playing Ludwig for 28 years since then. And they've always been fantastic for me, and the company's always done well by me. But we'll get into that later. The point I'm getting at really is the fact of listening to people around you. Within Yes, there's no reason why I can't go off, say, in a guitar solo and play with the guitarist and not the bass player. Because the bass player in Yes is a very, very lead bass type style that plays lots of melodies. So sometimes I just leave the bass player to fend for himself over there, and I'll play actual whole solos and play parts of the solos with the keyboard player, which leads to other kind of interesting forms of music as far as the rhythm section goes, because that takes us into other areas. And during the creation of a Yes album, a lot of the complexity in the music and different pieces of music come from those kind of things, of not having any boundaries within music, and taking the percussion instrument and following any instrument within the band to a certain degree to a different direction, and being able to come up with different tempos, different attitudes towards different pieces of music. And it has led to some interesting music, because Yes is really a band that knows no boundaries. It really is a band that kind of sees no horizon, as it were. We're always trying to see over the horizon and create new music, new direction, new sounds, and get them down onto disc. It's been interesting for like the last 19 years working with a bunch of musicians who have been creatively individual as well as together in that sense, where nothing really is the end of the day. It's a finished product until we've taken that song, completely torn it to pieces 2 or 3 times to find out all the avenues where the song can possibly go to. And it's a great stage for a percussion instrument to be doing that, because as I say, you can explore lots of avenues as far as time signatures and different areas. As you saw, I played changes there, which is something that I wrote on the piano, and wrote it from a rhythmical sense, basically, and then that turned around and I had to apply the rhythm to what I'd come up with on the piano. Funnily enough, most of the things I do write on the piano like that, I find it very, very hard to create a drum rhythm to go with it. It takes days and days to find exactly the right thing. But usually we turn around and come up with it. So the other thing I want to touch on is this wonderful kit here. I thought Joe did such a long intro speech here. I thought I was going to have nothing to talk about when I got up here. That was about the best one I've ever had, I think. So anyhow, this kit is a beautiful kit. You know, I must say, all the clinics that I've done, this kit is really sounding absolutely wonderful compared to some that you do get. They're all great, but this one's got a little bit of a flair to it. And I really enjoy the sound of it. And I'll sign it, and I think they're going to be giving it away. Is that right? I don't know. There's a price tag here with Happy Christmas on it. But then there's about 4 numbers underneath, so maybe knock that down to 3 numbers.
I don't really get much beer table.
You're right. Anyhow, I play basically the same kit. I don't use the power toms in my setup, but I play a 22-inch bass drum. I believe a lot of big guys in heavy metal bands and what have you use bigger bass drums, but I sincerely feel that the bigger you get, the smaller the sound does get. You can get everything you want from a 22-inch bass drum, and I've used one a long time in lots of big arenas, and believe you me, they really do the trick, especially Ludwig's. They've got, Ludwig have a great reputation for the snare drums and the bass drums. However, I do believe that if they're painted white inside, they are louder. Did you know that? The early drums in the late 60s, early 70s used to be painted white inside, and I think they were louder, but I've had this argument with Bill Ludwig many times because, how can it be louder? It's just a different color. But anyhow, I use basically the same kit without the power toms here. I use just a conventional 13 and 14 on the front of the kit here. I have the die-cast tubes, which you can't get die-cast tubes anymore, right? You can still order them? Yeah. The on top and bottom of my snare drum and all of my toms. And I find that when you're playing on stage, they don't, if you do have a loose lug or what have you, they don't loosen up so much. They really keep the drums taut, and they don't go out of tune as much. The drums themselves, as I said, I've been playing since I was 12 years old, and I've never had any problems with the fittings. And I've done 28 tours of America with Ludwig drums, and as I say, no problems at all. Everything stood up to the pounding they get on the road. I've always played Zildjian cymbals. This is a 22 ping ride. And I was telling Joe this afternoon, I'm thinking of taking it with me because this is a really good one. I was just playing it this afternoon. It's got a really hell of a sound to it. I usually use two inverted chinas here. 16 and 18 crashes, and then I usually use a pang or a china on the other side. 14-inch quick beat hi-hats is what I always use. I used to use a Speed King for many, many years, which is a very famous pedal that Ludwig made originally. And that has since been taken over by DW, but we don't tell the people from Ludwig that. I use a double double bass drum pedal on a single bass drum, which they are excellent, and I don't believe they can be beaten nowadays. But I do like playing the Ludwig one, but this one just has got the edge on it. The electronics you see here, I endorse a company called Dynacord, and this is an Ad 1. But I must stress that I've always been an acoustic drum player, and I always will be, basically, and all the electronics that I ever use are purely to enhance the actual acoustic sound. I have, in my drums for on stage, playing with Yes, I have a double rack behind me with my own mixer, and I have two of these Ad 1s that are MIDI together. Now inside each of these boxes is 127 different drum kits. So you can program and set the sounds up, loop the sounds, or you can actually sample into the box. And I can play guitars from this box too. I just mostly kind of glass type guitars, and not so many loops, because once you get into doing loops within a band, it's very hard on stage to keep exactly the right meter so the loop is actually in time when you get around to it. But you have to be very, very strict with yourself in that way. I have numerous effects. I have an MTM, Simmons MTM, and we can create lots of tricks, but there again I will stress that I am an acoustic player first and foremost. And on record and on stage, we go for the acoustic sound more than anything else. No samples or anything of that nature. We try and get everything out of the acoustic drums we need to. My drums themselves are all have numerous triggers in them. I have, has anyone heard of a guy called Wreak Havoc? He has Havoc, he has Havoc Productions, and I have his triggers inside the shells that mounted about an inch down from the head, and in the bass drum, and all of the toms, and the snare. And inside the snares I have the main system of internal miking. Now I can trigger each or both of these Ad 1s MIDI together from every drum in every aspect, external miking, internal miking, and also the triggers inside of the drums. Then, usually what I have is a set of Dynacord pads that exactly copy, usually they'll copy exactly the kit I have set up, but with different tonations to them and different sounds, but basically set up in the same way. So I can actually trigger from all aspects. I cover myself in every way as far as triggering samples. I've been able to come up with the different things that a band like Yes needs in different certain parts of the songs. But as I say, it's a very interesting field. Things move, change every day in electronic field. And now we're moving on to the Ad 2, which is, for those of you who are technical minded, it's 16-bit information, whereas the Ad 1 is only 8-bit information. It's a lot quieter, and it's basically as clean as you can get nowadays. And you can sample anything into the new Ad 2. So, having covered all that, you guys have got to ask me some questions. I'm going to let you do some work. Yes?
Yeah, excuse me, how you get your inspiration about drumming? What's your first drumming influences are?
My drumming influences. Well, as I say, when I was 12, it was kind of the Beatles era in England, and I think Ringo Starr was one of the first guys I was listening to in that area. I remember the first day I came up with a double bass drum beat going boom, boom, boom. I thought it was the end of the world I could actually play like that, you know, in those early days. But Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich were all early influences of mine until, you know, through my teens, and we used to play lots of Beatles songs on stage. But let's say I had a drum kit from the age of 12, and 3 months later I was playing on stage. I seemed to be a natural progression for me to the instrument. And I was playing 7 days a week at the age of like 12 years and 3 months, and I was going to school. It was great schooling for me in the instrument. It was actually playing live and working with musicians. So most of my groundwork was done more or less teaching myself how to cope with musicians in the band. Anyone else? Yes?
What is your approach to art time?
To what, sorry?
To art time.
To your time?
Art time.
Odd time. Oh, it's the accent down here. It's my English accent. Odd time. Okay. I believe that a lot of the different things we do in Yes, we create a lot of things such as changes. which is 7 and 9 all of the time. And I'm just interested in playing odd time signatures, and sometimes I love doing odd time signatures and even drum breaks in odd time signatures against the straight 4 time. I just think it makes the whole, it's interesting for the band to move into another dimension of playing 5s and 7s and 9s and things of different areas like that. We've even experimented with things like 19/8 and different things like that, some Bulgarian music and Moroccan music have things like that. But we all love playing it, even though there has been a trend for everybody to try and get back into playing the normal 4s and playing rock and roll. But you can be very clever about the way you play it. You can play odd time. You don't have to be a jazz musician to play odd meters like that. You can apply it to rock and roll and play it heavy too. And that's the kind of thing that I really enjoy within the framework of orchestral kind of rock music, as it were, which we play. And I've ever since the age of 18, I had my own band in England with a 3-piece horn section, and we've been basically experimenting with all those areas since then. And I like it, especially if you can make, from the age of 18, I believe that I wanted to make the band swing, but there's no reason why you can't get the band to swing really heavily in 7 or 5. And that's when you're really winning, when you can do that as well as play heavily in 4. Yes.
You always been a rudimental drummer? I mean, things been growing, more rudimental.
I think, well, in the early days when I first started playing, I'd read the books, and I'd have a certain amount of lessons that I went to, and then I thought, well, this bit's okay, but I thought the guy was trying to teach me how to play like he played, and I had a kind of opinion that I wanted to play like I wanted to play. I was very mixed up about all of that, so as a result of it, I only had about 6 months of lessons, and I took it from there and just applied it to my own style, and basically from then I think just searched for my own sound, my own style, and my own melodic type way of playing within the framework of music. But as I say, I went through all of the basics. A lot of the reading abilities I have came from playing piano basically, and moved up to the drum kit. Yes?
Some of the longer songs you've written, yes, with a lot of different type sections in them, like for instance, Gates of Delirium.
Yes.
Were those arranged from pieces of songs that y'all had written and just put together, or was any of those written out?
Can everybody hear the questions back there? Can you hear that? Yeah, okay. Anyhow, a lot of us will come along with a basic idea for a song. I mean, either in those days it was either John or Steve, you come along and say, our basic feel for this track could be like this, and then everybody starts working on it. And by the way, Gates of Delirium is one of my more favorite Yes numbers to play, especially on stage, when the band really kick in and play Gates of Delirium, which we haven't played for a good 8 years now. And I personally would like to do it on the next tour, because I like playing some of the more obscure stuff in amongst the Yes framework. Anyhow, we'll come along and we'll piece these together. My role usually is I write a lot of the kind of fiddly bits of music in between songs and links and different feels, like all that section, all that stuff. I came up with the ideas for taking the band in that crazy direction, and then there's a battle between the keyboards and drums, which was a very funny sight to see when we actually recorded it. Because Patrick Moraz and myself were in the studio, and we decided to have a battle on record over the top of the backing, and they were playing it, and he had his keyboards over there, and I had the drums over here. And in the making of Gates of Delirium, in fact, the whole of the album, Relay, I used to pass this junkyard on the way down to Chris Squire's. He had a studio in his basement. That's where we made most of the album. And every morning, John Anderson and myself were going, and we'd be banging wheel rims and old car springs and all of these different pieces of odd metal that just made really different kind of sounds. So we built this whole framework in the studio of parts of cars. And in fact, that's what you hear me in some is playing all of these things. And in the end, I pushed the whole thing over in the studio, and I kind of knocked the keyboards fine, and we just destroyed the whole place. And that's what you hear at the end of the battle within the record. It's a really funny period of time. Destroyed Chris's studio completely. Anyhow, yes?
Being from Europe, are you familiar, or have you ever heard of drum corps? I know that a lot of the yes stuff, especially changing, has been used in arranging for drum solos and things like that.
Right.
That I've heard. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, you know, drum corps, like you have here in America, there isn't that much of those kind of things over in Europe, unfortunately, because I think it's a great thing for kids to get into the marching thing at school, and I personally love it. And I wish there was a lot more of it, but I have heard bands play different yes music. In fact, I think it was last year I went to see the Lakers, and the band that plays behind the Lakers, they were playing a great version of Roundabout with a low-end kind of trombone playing the bass part, and it was so fast, it was really tight. I was with Chris and Trevor, we all sat there, we couldn't believe it. It was a great arrangement. But I do like, I get interested in all of those kind of things. In fact, earlier this year in March, I went to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I played 3 evening concerts with the Lancaster School of Percussion, which is just a high school kind of percussion band. But all they do is play yes music. It's really fantastic. They sent me a tape and said, will you do it? They play orchestral pieces, but the whole last 3/4 of an hour of the set was myself playing the drums, and these guys were great. They play Roundabout, they play Changes, they play parts of Delirium. They picked out some of the really more obscure, odd timing, odd melody kind of stuff that Yes has done over the years. And they were great. It was just an enjoyment playing with them. They made me videotape, and it would just boosted the kids. And in fact, I was talking to Joe earlier today about initiating possibly that within some other clinics. Say, you know, I know in San Diego there's a very good band that plays a lot of yes music, and it would be good. The kids really get a kick out of doing it with a guy who plays on the record as well, and it bumps them up there. So I enjoy that a lot. Yes.
I've got the program to the Going for the One tour that you did about 10 years ago, and in it you're listed as playing 18-inch hi-hat cymbals. And I was wondering, is that a misprint?
That was just a real crazy period I was going through. I had the belief that we wanted to get onto record. We'd hear things like these real big Bond sounds and these real crashing. I thought, well, why do they keep them that size? Let's make it. No, it was 16-inch. Actually, it was 2 16-inch cymbals, a heavy gauge and a light gauge cymbal. And I got to, I put a normal hi-hat stand with it, and I used to beat the hell out of these things. And it was always out of balance with the rest of the kit, basically. And but I was just getting a kick out of it for a while.
Also, you were listed as playing North drums.
That's right.
And I've seen various pictures of you through the years, and your kit always seems to be changing. When you had the round stage, it looked like you had 3 toms on top of the bass drum.
Right.
And I even got an old tape of you a few weeks ago. It looked like you were playing a couple of timbales.
That's right. Those are different periods.
How has your kit changed over the years?
The reason usually is to accommodate the kind of music we were playing on stage. Basically, I moved from one kit and make additions to there's some sets I used to do. I used to have steel drums in with my whole kit for playing lots of different areas of percussive type metallic sounds. I used to have, as you say, the North drums were on a double round stage. I only used to use them for about 15 minutes of the set. The whole thing used to turn around and I'd play the North drums and then turn around again. If you could see the roadies under the stage, it was great because they had to unplug the whole thing, plug this other whole thing in, and some nights it didn't work. It used to be an absolute horror show, and people screaming at each other. But North drums were okay for the, they passed very quickly and just really different sounding things. We used to mic them in the end and on the top too, and send both sounds down to the ward. But the additions to the kit usually have been to accommodate the music and the different parts of the music that I had to play. Say for instance, turn of the century. We used to have, that was all timpani and cymbals, and we used to have that set up in a different part of the stage. And we used to like to make it theatrical like that because you'd move from one instrument to another instead of the basic kit sound of all of the set. But that's the coloring sound we like to create, not on record, as on record, on stage as well. Yes, has been a great believer in whatever we did in the studio, we always could do it again on stage. We never try to fabricate anything.
Will you be playing Heart of the Sunrise again?
Sorry?
Will you be playing Heart of the Sunrise again?
Yes, Heart of the Sunrise is actually one of my other favourite songs to play, especially live on stage. It's a very dynamic, very live, very powerful, hard-hitting number with lots of shade, lights and colour, and the whole piano section, the build-up, and then the fiery band again. And I enjoy it immensely. In fact, on the last tour that Yes did, I think it was one of the best numbers we played on stage. The new band actually plays it better than the old band. They play it heavier, and it makes it more dynamic, in my eyes anyway. Yes?
Yeah, I want to ask a question. I know I'm into postmodern music though, but what's the difference between postmodern, like the punky, like new wave stuff, punky new wave stuff? What's the difference between the punky like beat and the heavy metal like drum beat?
The difference between a punky...
a punk like beat. So a punk, new wave, rock,
right.
beat.
And
related with that type of stuff? So.
Oh, absolutely, yes. In fact, yeah, I just do a lot of new wave type stuff at home. I always like to listen to a wide variety of music and pick from that and get inspiration for where I feel it could come from. I think a lot of the punk style drumming of the earlier days.
Of the late, around the late 70s and early 80s, the early parts of this decade?
Yes, I know. That was more, to me, not as controlled as some of the heavy metal type drummers that are around today. They've developed a heavy style, but they've done it with more of a finesse to it, and they can control it better. Even, you're picking on certain bands. I think Tommy Lee probably is a good example of where you could take heavy metal type drumming. And yeah, I have listened to it all, but I do prefer somebody who plays with a little bit of style and light and shade as opposed to just flat out from the beginning to the end of the number.
Yeah, I saw like Stuart Copeland of the rock band called The Police, right?
Right.
And you know him?
But yes, I know him. He's a very tasty player. He plays some great music. In fact, he doesn't live far from me in England. I meet him at different places. But he's a nice guy. He's really nice. Yes.
How old were you when you got your first professional band?
My first professional band? 12. But I was still, how old are you? 10. You're 10? You could be there in a couple of years. Yeah, I was playing on stage at 12 years old. I remember it was my first gig ever. I got paid what was the equivalent of 30 shillings in England, which is like, I think it's about $2. And I played for 2.5 hours. And I sprained my wrists because I'd never played for that long in one section before. This is when I was 12 years old, and I was just really keen to be into it. And we were playing things like shadows music and instrumentals, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, but sprained my wrists and I couldn't play for about 3 or 4 weeks after that. But that was my first pay packet, as it were. My mother couldn't believe I was earning money. Yes.
One of the things I'm really impressed with is the fact that you can keep basic beats as well as you can solo really well. Does it really get on your nerves sometimes when you see just, not naming particular names, but drummers out in say the pop music area or just, in the mainstream music area, that all they seem, interested with is getting a really good lick on the album or the song per se, or live, but they really can't get the basic beat down.
They can't hold it down.
Right, exactly.
You see, I'm a firm believer in nobody really makes the rules as far as why you should stay perfectly in time. I wanted to touch on this. It's perfectly normal for a band to kind of like, when you get to the chorus, the band just jumps up a gear and you push the chorus, then you can lay back. That's all part of music to me. And these guys that play with the clicks and keep perfectly in time, it tends to become very, very, it's not as human, the music, and it gets very controlled by the machine, which is, I'm a firm hater of drum machines, except for the right place. If they're used within the framework of writing music and you use them for that purpose only, it's fine to keep them over there. But please keep the humanism within music, because it's great. I like, sometimes Chris will turn around and say, "The chorus is too fast." We go slow. I said, "No, it's happening. Look at everybody's face." And you just got to go with it and take the band to those elevations. And then you realize, oh yeah, it is happening. Yes.
Well, I'm not against I'm not against electronic stuff or even not even drum machines. Most times they use drum machines only for rap musicians. Rap musicians don't use drumming machines.
Well, it's perfect for that kind of thing because you just go switch it on and start rapping. Yes.
Stuff you would think of like the rap music, drum beat up front, happening like the songs, or they just like some should be ignored.
Oh, I think it's very important. I think to have that. I mean, it's very impressive for the instrument as a whole. Generally, to have drums right up there. I mean, and a lot of bands, even outside that framework of music, do that. Drums nowadays are a very important instrument, and played right and played with a sense of. You can play that with a sense of melody as well as just thrashing away as well. You just have to really tune yourself in where you want to go within the song and where you want to take the music to. And as I say, in the last 10 years, drums have done a big turnaround, and now the drummer is one of the most important musicians in the band. Yes.
Yeah, on the last two albums, 915 and Big Generator, you really got a much better response, lately from the American audiences.
Right.
Do you feel like, did the record executives really try and push those last two albums to get the American audiences through the pop?
No, not really. I think, 90125 was really kind of like a rebirth of the band. I mean, I don't know if you know the story before that of like how we met Trevor, and we were going to call, there was Chris, myself, and Trevor originally, we were going to call the band Cinema. And we finally had almost completed all the backing tracks to 90125 before John Anderson ever got involved in the band again. We were cutting the last track. He came along and he said, "Oh, would mind singing on a couple of songs?" And we sang on a couple of songs, and it sounded so much like a modern day Yes that we really couldn't call the band anything but Yes again. And there was a turn back towards this kind of sound, but with a kind of more modern approach. We rehearsed for 8 months to change the approach to the sound of the band, which was a little heavier, but still as musical, and still as interested in kind of doing pieces of music that nobody else was playing. And that's basically what has happened again this time. We have now turned around, and as it were, it's like a pre-90125 feeling for me right now, because we're coming up with some music that's very interesting, and it's moving forward into the future. It's music of the 90s, I consider it, and it's going to be, if we can get it on record as well as some of the demos and some of the live playing has been, it's going to be a good album. Yes.
Something you were talking about earlier, you sprained your wrist. I know that you do extensive practicing and things
Right.
like that. How do you, I mean, I know you've been probably injured in the past and things like that, but what's the worst time that you've ever had?
Worst injury I've had? I'm not going to believe this. We were making an album in Paris. You're talking maybe 25 people living in Paris, very expensive. We were using a recording studio. And does any of you guys know Richard Branson, who owns Virgin Airlines, the guy that does all the crazy stuff? He flies those balloons across the oceans. Well, he's a good friend of mine anyhow. He owns Virgin Records and Virgin Airlines. He's a very wealthy friend of mine. But he's a bit of a crazy guy, and I met him at 2 in the
Something you were talking about earlier, you sprained your wrist. I know that you do extensive practicing and things
Right.
like that. How do you, I mean, I know you've been probably injured in the past and things like that, but what's the worst time that you've ever had?
worst injury I've had. I'm not going to believe this. We were making an album in Paris. You're talking maybe 25 people living in Paris, very expensive. We were using a recording studio, and does any of you guys know Richard Branson, who owns Virgin Airlines, the guy that does all the crazy stuff? He flies those balloons across the oceans. Well, he's a good friend of mine anyhow. He owns Virgin Records and Virgin Airlines. He's a very wealthy friend of mine. But he's a bit of a crazy guy, and I met him at 2 in the morning, and he asked me to go roller skating with him in this nightclub in the basement. And we went roller skating. There was only one set of roller skates that fit both of us. And I happened to grab him first. I went 3 steps, I fell over and broke my ankle, but it was a bass drum. And we were right in the middle of the backing tracks for a new album. So I hobbled, I didn't know I'd broken it then. I put my cowboy boots back on, and he grabbed the skates, and he went halfway around the dance floor and fell and slipped a disc in his back. So we both hobbled out of this place, only to go to the hospital the next morning. They had to cut my boot off because my foot was swollen up inside, and I couldn't do anything with it. And I said, I hope so. I thought it was just like twisted. And I said, look, I'll be a little bit late today, guys. I twisted my ankle. Maybe you can do some vocals for a couple of days. I went to the American hospital in Paris, and they put a cast on my leg up to here. And I called the band in the studio. I said, you're not going to believe what's happened. Nobody would believe me. So I went into the studio on crutches, and I walked in, and everybody just like, their whole face dropped. Because we were busy recording all the backing tracks, and we had to cut the album short right there, and everybody went home back to England. But I was doing a tax year out of England, so they left me in Paris on crutches for 3 months by myself, hobbling around. That's where I learned to speak French. Yes.
Yeah, excuse me, in your original drummer, or else you just the new drummer of the rock band, of the new improved, yes?
I'm not the original drummer. Bill Griffin was the original drummer.
Yes.
And he was with the band. In fact, he wasn't, a lot of people don't know this, he wasn't the absolute original drummer. They had one guy before Bill, but it was before the band really had named itself. And he was studying at university. They asked him to join, and he was with the band for 3 years, no more than that, 4 years, almost 4 years. I joined the band in July '72, and if you work that out, I've been with the band 18 odd years, thereabouts. 19 in July, I think. Yes.
Do you have any kind of formal music degrees on percussion?
I did not in percussion. And on piano, I played piano until the age of 15. No, 16. I was 16 when I started playing piano, and I went through all of my theory and all of my training up to teacher's degree as 8th grade in England. I studied right up until that, playing the piano. So that's my musical training. From then on, it was a question of myself, teaching myself how to apply myself to play with bands as I usually get into that subject. Yes?
It probably doesn't happen much anymore, but especially when you were younger, did any of the band members try to tell you how to play a certain part?
Oh yeah, but at the same time, I was always a little bit rebellious. I'd always try and say, yeah, this is good, but how about if we try this bit like this? And I was always experimenting with new ways of how to play and apply percussion within with songs that already were standards and what have you. So as I say, from then on, they kind of gave up trying to tell me what to do, because I'd say, no, it sounds so much better like this. And I was just being very strong in that area. Yes?
Has anyone approached you about doing any drum videos?
Yeah, I've been approached, and quite frankly, I'd love to do it. I just never seem to get the time to sit down, because if I want to do it, I'd like to do a video on that subject of applying the instrument to playing with different areas of music with different bands. And I think that would make it an interesting video for young kids who are growing up with the idea of playing with other people. There's plenty of videos out on the rudiments and all of that area, so that they can get enough from those videos. I'd like to touch upon the more how you apply the instrument. And maybe in the near future, if I get time to do it, we'll do it. But I'd like to do it properly if I'm going to do it. And get a storyboard and work it all out. Yeah, you were going to say.
You said Trevor Raven's back with you?
Trevor's out doing a solo tour right now. He's doing, I think, about 15 gigs with his own little band to promote his last record.
So is he coming back with?
Yeah. Yeah, Trevor will be starting in January. He finishes, in fact, when I get back to LA on Wednesday, I'm going straight from the airport to the Roxy, to play in the Roxy in LA. And we're going to go up, the whole band's going to sit in front of the stage and go, okay, entertain me.
Will he be doing the vocals on the new one?
Trevor will be doing, I'm sure, a certain amount of vocals. The guy's very talented, he's got a good voice, and a lot of writing, probably. But he won't be the singer of the band, there's a new singer yet. It's going to be exciting, that's for sure. Yes.
Yeah, excuse me, I know some of your drum beats are sort of reggae-like related beats.
Right.
Ain't your drum beats are sort of reggae, like professionally reggae-like related, sort of?
Like relayer?
Yeah, reggae.
Yes, reggae, yeah. Yeah, I love reggae music. I spent quite a lot of time down in the Caribbean. I used to collect all of those old singles where they used to have really odd sounding, where the bass player's the loudest thing in the world. And they put these boxes out in the street, and they physically shake your car as you're going by. I love reggae music. I love all kinds of music that's good, and I like to use it within the framework of Yes Music.
I also like all different types of music. I know I mainly like temporary gospel music, but also I like sort of new wave stuff, you know, sort of new wave punky like stuff.
Right.
You know? Cause it's got a sort of like a reggae like significance in it, you know.
Sure. I mean, it can be applied to all different areas, as I was saying, and using it within a musical band like Yes is even as interesting because it's the last thing they expect you to do. And sometimes we enjoy doing the last thing that somebody expects you to do. Yes.
Has there ever been a time when, say, you and Chris Squire were sitting down and working on a part and you just amazed yourself? Just absolutely just
That we pulled something off?
You and him just did something, sound like an ESP type thing between you and the bass player.
Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time within music, especially when you've been playing with a musician for as long as we've been playing together. We'll do things and look at each other and go, well, I didn't know we were going to end up there, kind of thing, you know. And you find yourself in a piece of music and you made it. And then recreating that is very difficult. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen a couple pictures with you playing the white coated heads, and now you're playing the
And-
rockers. Which one do you?
In fact, these just came with a kit. In my kit, I use orchestral heads, which are kind of not as durable as these heads for rock and roll. And
Got the white head.
yeah, and they're kind of thin, and they're great. You can get a really good tone out. Sorry.
Are they coated?
They're coated, yeah. They get a really nice tone out of it. They use more in orchestral areas and for things like that. But I think, seeing as I can change the skins quite a lot because they donate them to me, and I just like using them. I've used them for years.
You don't like the double fly, like the Evans hydraulic or anything?
I've tried a lot of them.